I met someone who didn't care about my boundaries, someone who didn't think about how I would feel. I told him no, but he didn't listen. He forced himself on me and I froze. I felt like the world was closing in on me. I didn't know how to fight back or even speak. After it was over, I felt like I had lost a part of myself. The voices in my head started screaming at me, telling me it was my fault, that I should have fought harder and that I deserved what happened to me. The more I tried to silence them, the louder they became until I believed every word. The PTSD that followed was almost unbearable. Nightmares, flashbacks, and panic attacks were a constant reminder of what had happened. And yet, it wasn't just my mind that was affected. My body was too. My back, neck, and shoulder tense. My hands, legs, and arms cramping. They say the body keeps the score. I know I'm not alone. Every day, thousands of people experience sexual violence, and it changes them forever. It changes how they see themselves and how they see the world. We need to do better. We need to speak out and raise awareness so that no one else must suffer in silence. Every form of sexual violence is a human rights violation. It's time to stop it once and for all. I know I'm not alone. Even with the pain that is done, I believe that there are people who are willing to fight with me. Will you?
When we think of war and conflict, we often think of physical violence and destruction, but there's another, less talked about aspect of war that has a devastating effect: sexual violence. Did you know that in some conflicts, up to 90% of rapes are perpetrated against women and girls? During conflicts, sexual violence is often used as a weapon to terrorize and control communities. Survivors of sexual violence may experience physical injuries, unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted infection, as well as mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. It is important to recognize that the sexual violence during conflict is not an inevitable byproduct of war, but rather a strategic act of violence. And by targeting these women and girls, perpetrators seek to disrupt and destroy the social fabrics of communities. Sexual violence is also used as a tool of ethnic cleansing to drive out entire populations from their homelands. To address this issue, we must support survivors of sexual violence and hold perpetrators accountable for their crimes. We must also work on prevention by addressing the root causes of sexual violence and promoting gender equality and women's rights. So let's raise awareness about this important issue and commit to a world where women and girls are safe, even in times of conflict.
Period poverty is a global crisis that affects millions of women and girls around the world. It refers to the lack of access to menstrual hygiene products, clean water, and sanitation facilities that are necessary to manage menstruations. This results in many women and girls being forced to use unsanitary materials such as rags, newspapers, or even leaves, putting their health and dignity at risk. The consequences of period poverty are awful. Girls miss school, women miss work, and entire communities suffer. Lack of education and income earning opportunities keep women and girls trapped in poverty, perpetuating the cycle of inequality. We cannot afford to ignore this crisis any longer. It is time to take action and end period poverty once and for all. This means providing access to menstrual hygiene products, clean water, and sanitary facilities to every woman and girl around the world. Governments, NGOs, and individuals must come together to make this happen. We must invest in education and awareness-raising campaigns that break down the stigma surrounding menstruation and promote menstrual health. We must also work to address the underlying causes of period poverty, such as gender inequality, poverty, and lack of access to health care. As individuals, we must make a difference too. We can donate to organizations that are working to end period poverty, raise awareness in our communities, and advocate for change. We must make our voices heard and demand actions from our governments. Together, we can end period poverty and create a world where every woman and girl has access to the resources she needs to manage her menstruation with dignity and respect. Let's take action now and make this a reality.
As the sun sets over Washington, D.C., the quiet streets surrounding the gourmet ping-pong pizza were disturbed by a man with a gun. He barged into the restaurant, demanding to see the supposed evidence of a child sex trafficking ring that he had heard about online. The only problem was that the rumors were entirely false. The conspiracy theory, known as Pizzagate, had begun spreading like wildfire on social media just weeks before. False rumor alleged that Hillary Clinton and her campaign chairman were behind a child sex trafficking ring being run out of gourmet ping pong. Despite there being no evidence to support these claims, the rumors quickly spread and led to a dangerous situation that unfolded that evening. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the danger of fake news became clear. Fake news, the spread of false or misleading information with the intent to deceive people, can have serious consequences. It's just not limited to the conspiracy theories like Pizzagate, but can also be used to influence political opinions, sway elections, and even incite violence. That is why it is so important to have strong regulation to protect our right to information. Measures like fact-checking, labeling false information, and punishing those who spread fake news can help combat the problem. But it is also important for everyone to be critical of what they see online and to fact-check information before sharing it. We need to work together to combat fake news and ensure that accurate information is available to everyone. By doing so, we can protect our democracy and ensure that our right to information is not compromised.
In 2022, the United States alone recorded 617 mass shootings and an estimated 20,000 fatalities due to gun violence. an unthinkable high amount and a major increase in comparison to other years. But what makes gun violence in the US so prevalent? One of the core problems in this story is the influence of the NRA, the largest gun owners organization in the US, lobbying against gun control laws. NRA stands for National Rifle Association. It was founded in 1871 to promote and encourage rifle shooting on a scientific basis. Currently, though, it's an advocacy group for the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. A lot of senators have received millions in campaign funding throughout their careers, which comes paired with a particular interest. Polls suggest a majority of the United States population is in favor of stricter gun laws, and yet the NRA will try everything in its power to avoid stricter gun laws, as they've done in the past. The Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act is a good example of such a case. From my perception, the NRA has no interest in standing for and protecting the American people, what they supposedly stand for. What they're actually doing is preserving an industry which keeps filling the organization's pockets and is at the expense of thousands of American lives every year. That deep-rooted influence the NRA has within American politics needs to be reduced. And I strongly recommend the American people to keep advocating for stricter gun laws to save hundreds of American lives every year and finally rid us of the bad faith actors of gun politics.
There once was a historic region called Palestine, where Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived peacefully in the 1800s, ruled by the Ottoman Empire. After the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the end of World War I, Jewish immigration to my homeland Palestine began as part of the Zionist movement. It sought to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. In 1948, the Nakba occurred, where Israel bullied its way into a state and declared independence. This resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes and the establishment of Israel as a Jewish state. The Nakba isn't simply an event of the past. 75 years later, Palestinians still have no right for a return, no right for a home, and no right to fight for the land that they owned, while Israel expanded more and more into an apartheid. Palestinians continue to face expulsion, home demolitions, land confiscations, restrictions on Palestinian movement, and access to basic resources and services like healthcare and education. The colonization and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians never ended. But just like the Nakba never ended, neither has the struggle for freedom and liberation. Recognizing apartheid gives us moral clarity. At the end, how can we fight injustice if we don't call it for what it is? Calling it a conflict is insanity. There are no two equal sides. There's the occupier, the apartheid and settler colonial state, and there's the occupied, the dispossessed, and the oppressed. Palestine will someday be free, so be on the right of history.